just sheer devastation from many of the airstrikes we now know Israel has been launching into Gaza, trying to attack what they say are Hamas targets and their specific infrastructure that is allowing them to have command and control. And so we are just looking at these images of sheer destruction, Jose.
It's unbelievable to see these images. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency this morning issuing a stark assessment of the situation in Gaza as the death toll continues to climb. Quote, there are not enough body bags.
The UN also says that there are now more than 1 million internally displaced people in Gaza. Akram Asatari is a Gaza journalist and filed this report from outside a hospital in South Gaza.
On my way to this area, I have just spoken to the head of the pediatric hospital at Nasser, who is also a member of the senior managed team at Al-Nasser Hospital. He informed me, and in his words, the situation is more than catastrophic. The supplies are depleting, and they are actually on the verge of collapse if they are not collapsing. They're struggling with the very minimum they have to save the lives of the people who are injured and who are struggling for their lives. Because of the ongoing escalation and the large devastation, the medical teams who are at Al-Nasser Hospital and also who are in different areas of the Gaza Strip have been not going back home for such a while, and I saw at least 2 of them. Those 2 were seeing their friends and relatives and were seeing their immediate friends. One of them saw his son killed and saw him on the bed of the hospital. He didn't know about that, and because of the disruption of the communication throughout the Gaza Strip, he didn't know that his family was injured, and he was saddened and he was shocked to see his son killed and to see the remaining family members injured and on the bed of the hospital. Another one also saw his father and his son killed in another place in the Gaza North. They were targeted, they were killed, and the doctor was just assuming his job and doing his duty, saving the other people, and he was surprised and shocked to see his family there on the bed and to know that the other people were killed.
Our thanks to Gaza journalist Akram Asatari.
And now joining us is Fadi Judah. He's a Palestinian American doctor who lives in Texas. And 49 members of his extended family have now been killed in the strikes in Gaza. Fadi, thank you so much for joining us. Wow.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry for the losses of what you've experienced. 49 members of your family. Can you tell us about who you lost?
Well, a few days ago, it was 7 of distant cousins. The next day, it was my cousin's in-laws, her husband's family. 17 of them were annihilated in one strike. 2 days ago, 22 members of the Judah family in Deir al-Balah, which is one of the sort of small suburbs or, refugee camps, essentially, towns around Gaza, were killed. And last night, my father sent me a note that 3 beautiful little girls, also from second cousins, were killed last night. 2 of them are sisters. So that's 49, I think, if the math is correct. I am both heartened and disheartened to watch the first few minutes of your show, because the focus on the collective death of Palestinians and the collective carnage visited upon them is somehow puts a face gives the Palestinians a face they always had and they always have. But of course, I'm disheartened because yet again we get to this moment where we're looking at photographs or videos for a people who are awaiting a life worse than death. You mentioned the morgues, the ice cream vendor morgues, which can only fit the bodies of children. This happened in 2014 when Israel visited the same brutality on the Gaza Strip. And And it was terrifying. I was thinking of this morning, and it was just terrifying for me to hear you say that this is happening again. And some people do not know that it was happened before. I had even written about it in some of my work, though not as directly as I am speaking of it now. I've been asked on several shows if I have photos of any of the dead and of my family, and I don't, and the reasons are many. I am not permitted to go back to Gaza to even have photographs with them, and I have no access to ask them to send me photographs. And on the occasion that I have to ask them ethically, at least for me, permission to use their photographs of the dead. And I know that I would also feel conflicted to ask, because they would feel, I know they would feel terrible about having their photos on U.S. TVs, no matter the good intention. Yeah. From the same system that sanctions their killing and has sanctioned it before. But we as human beings understand that every human has a face, and the proof of relatability does not have to be a burden of proof on the dead.
Doctor, absolutely every human has a face. Every human has a soul. Every human has worth. In this so conflicted time, you whose profession and vocation is to help heal as a doctor, how do you process and help us understand how difficult it is for this to finally be focused on people, and innocent people who a week ago were massacred in their homes, in a concert, and who now, in your case, 49 family members have been lost.
Yeah, my case is less relevant to me than, because it is a collective case at this point. I hold on to what I say. If we truly believe that people are equal, the Palestinian question would be solved a lot sooner. This is difficult for people to hear in English and American English, but we do not view Palestinians as equal. I know that in our hearts, when the situation is presented to us linguistically as a rational thing to hear, every one of us will say, but of course I see you as my equal or my brother or my fellow human or my fellow citizen. But in reality, this is not afforded to the Palestinians. And if it is afforded to the Palestinians, we would all pause and say, well, you know, what does it, what would that entail? What would it entail for Palestinians to have equal rights to the majority of civilians in Israel who have always water, electricity, and often a greater by folds degree of security than most Palestinians have, freedom of movement, and even freedom to books and reading and travel, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The language that we have constructed, I think, over the last few decades that prevent us from seeing this simply is what we have to come to terms with in America, so that we can open our hearts truly to what we all believe in, that we are all truly equal.
Well, I think you heard in the interview last night from President Biden that he believes a longer-term solution to this conflict in the Middle East, specifically in Israel and Palestinian territories, and trying to determine where this all heads, he sees as a two-state solution. And of course, this is something that has been a complicated negotiation and unfortunately led to a lot of violence over decades and decades and decades. And this is a new flashpoint. We're also in a situation where it was a historical attack that happened against the Israeli people by Hamas, and that complicates it even more. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and perspective, and our heart is with you
it
and the loss of your
because
family.
we do not see the Palestinians equally. What about the catastrophes and the unheralded attacks on Palestinians also? They're also historic. Israeli lives are equal to Palestinian lives. Let's start there. There's no need to diminish the Israeli losses and their suffering. But let's not always emphasize them in a way that they are somehow more important than Palestinian suffering. I go back to my point.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I do want to make the point, too, that we've been very careful, definitely on this show, to really distinguish the difference between Hamas, the terrorists, and the people who are in Gaza City, who are innocent civilians who are suffering right now. And that, I think, is important. Thank you again for joining us.